Hello, Jay. How are you?
Hey Melba, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just trying to get my bearings in order.
I'm sitting here watching that. I was watching a YouTube replay of the Reinforce, the AWS Reinforce, where they gave an elongated 1 hour talk on OSCAL,
Oh, can you send
and
me that link?
I'm sitting here watching it because I've read so much documentation on OSCAL, and I'm still left with, okay, how the hell do you operationalize this? Like I get taking the controls and putting them in OSCAL language, either your XML, JSON, and YAML formats. I get that. I get putting all the controls there. I get the implementation models, the assessment models, the profile models. I get all of that. I get SSPs. I get everything. I get all of that. I'm saying, okay, after that, how the hell do you tell me how you generate what artifact gets generated from this that's so it's machine readable. Okay, I get the premise, but what gets generated that says that gives me some type of a warm and fuzzy about my security posture or about my understanding of risk outside of what I normally do.
Yep.
I mean, I'm still and I imagine, like, right now I'm about 25 minutes in. So I imagine at some point they're gonna show artifacts or reports or something that gets generated that I can say, oh, okay, I got it, because I'm telling you, everything I read, it's all great. It's just okay. So what? That's why I'm still left with.
Well, I would still like that link if you could. No, I'm not going to promise I'll listen to it, but it sounds like it's at least somewhat informative.
Yeah, no, I'll put it right in the chat here.
Thank you. And for those that are just joining, please sign in and let me share open system preferences. I am trying to get it to let me share something. Desktop one. I have a new system. Privacy. Unlock. Okay. Oh, it wants me to quit, so I'm not going to quit. So I just won't share. I'm just in the meeting notes, folks. Okay, so if you can sign in, I'll repost the link here in case you weren't on earlier. And let's see, I know Mike Lieberman said he wasn't going to be able to join, and I forget the Joshua Mulligan said he wouldn't be able to join. Wow, man, Bruno, I'm starting to realize how out of shape I am in comparison to you. You did an Ironman like about a month ago. Now you're a half marathon this last weekend. That's I like the enthusiasm. I like the athleticism. But
it's to keep the sanity.
to keep the sanity. Yeah, I've been trying to get back into running myself. I feel like I took a 6-year hiatus, but it's hard to find a consistent time for myself. So I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know how you can schedule time for a half marathon.
Well, one thing that really helps living in Portland, Oregon, is to have a treadmill.
Yeah. Let's see. And then Jeff. Ooh, Are you doing a CPR class, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm going to be teaching hands-on CPR to the community.
Nice, nice. So is it going to be adult CPR, baby CPR?
Yeah, this one's adult only. This is it's a community event, so we're teaching hands only. So
Okay.
so we're not going through like a formal class. It's really much more of a, hey, join us for 1 minute, literally, and we'll teach you how to save a life. So trying to teach lay people how to do it.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, in my copious amounts of spare time, I'm an EMT and a CPR instructor. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Wow. Wow. Okay. You have quite the life outside of work.
A little different than most.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if anybody else wants to share anything interesting about themselves for this week or today. If not, I can go. I'm actually volunteering for the first time as a assistant math coach for kindergartners. So it should be interesting. They play games. It's not really like addition or anything. They just play a bunch of strategic games that are math related. So it should be interesting. That's going to be my little hobby for the rest of the year. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have to do this with my kids here, not a volunteer.
Okay. Any newcomers on the call? Benny, I don't think I've recognized your name. Are you new? If you want to speak, feel free.
Sure, yeah, I am new. I am actually on Jay's team. I've been crashing a bunch of the OpenSSF meetings in general, just to kind of get a feel for things.
Oh, well, welcome, welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah. And there's no such thing as crashing. You're learning, you're giving back.
I'm not giving yet, but I'm definitely
Yeah.
learning.
Okay. So Oscar talk. So Jay was just giving an update on a video that he was watching, and that's what you heard at the beginning. So Jay, do you want to provide any other updates around Oscar and what you've been able to find? You're on
You're
mute
on
if you're
mute.
talking. Yeah.
Thanks for that. This is going to be something that's going to be used across the board, right? This is everything I've read suggests that this is the way. All right. From an automation standpoint. So I'm right in line with the ideal behind OSCAL, behind the different models. It's applicability. One thing I'm having trouble with, and I've gone through a bunch. I'm talking about even the early documentation on OSCAL 2 from this, which is a little bit different than it's evolved a little bit over time. What I'm having trouble with is and I imagine that this video will make it clear. It's operationalizing it once you've developed a catalog and you can develop your playbooks, etc. How then do you operationalize, and what are the artifacts that are generated? What kind of deliverables are generated from it that's usable, right? I mean, that it's told that it's machine and a machine readable language. Excellent. So you're able to automate a lot of you're able to automate your assessments. Outstanding. What does that deliverable actually look like, right? And then when you consider that you're automating assessments, or you're automating a lot of the stuff is documentation based, right? What does your actual written policies look like? How, some of the stuff is on site. When were they last reviewed? When were they last updated? Whose signature is on that? Okay, your CISO changed or whatever, and you're still the old CISO's name is still on these documents, right? I don't care if they need to be updated every year per this control, you should be updating on the next person. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that I think, and in this particular instance, not that this applies, I guess, more or less to what we would like to use it for. All that is to say is there are still some things that can't be automated. How do you account for that? So I'm onward with I'm onward. Okay, hold on a second. So I'm not. It might not. So I might have put in an I where it should be an L. Hold on a second. You know how these things go. Apologize about that. Let me repost. Let me repost it different with the instead of the I here, see if that works. So I'm watching this. It's an hour-long session, talk that was given in July at Reinforce by what appears to be one of the creators of the language. You know, I'll continue to fight the good fight on it, do a deeper dive, and what I'm really looking for here is artifacts, deliverables, and then how it exactly gets operationalized from there. So that's where I'm at with it now. I encourage everyone to watch it. It's good information for all. And yeah, onward. I will say that yes, this is something that we need to that we definitely need to look at, and we definitely need to consider. You know, in terms of putting I mean, on the specification side at least, putting a lot of those controls and a lot of that stuff in OSCAL language and all that.
Okay. I just updated the link, so that second link finally works for folks. Thank you. It wasn't working for me for a while for some reason.
Oh yeah. So just to let you guys know, I'm watching it on my other. I got two other computers in front of me, so I'm watching it on one of those. I just typed the link in to the chat, so there was a confusion between what's a capital I versus a lowercase L. I shrug. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I have beef with fonts because of the letter I. I don't like how there's only like maybe one or two fonts that properly write the capital letter I.
Yeah.
And otherwise it looks like a lowercase L.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about that some other day. But yeah, I have beef with the fonts because of that. Okay, let's see what else. And since I'm on you, Jay.
Blog.
Yes, the blog.
So I'll give you guys an idea of what my thought process is with this, especially from a positioning perspective. And I welcome any suggestions or comments or thoughts on this. I don't want to write multiple blog posts. I want to write one. We just voted in, and of course there was just an FYI on the TAC call this morning for the SSC, which I think we're gonna give a new title, the Secure Supply Chain Consumption Framework. There's a working title, Samba. That was Jack that gave that. Either way, my vision on this is been the same since day one. I think as a consumption framework with SLSA's production framework, I think that both of these should ride together into the ISO sunset. And I'm thinking the ISO standard -1 and -2. That being said, I want to do a blog post with the both of these, right? You know, to tote the bridge between the two, and the efforts towards providing that well-rounded secure supply chain framework. Now, I want to pause there, but before I pause, I'll say there's a third piece out here under the CDF, that's right now calling itself the Secure Supply Chain Maturity Model. That's also from Google, that says what happens after the generation of artifacts. So it talks about the artifact life cycle, deployment, deployment management, release management. What it doesn't talk about is end of life. I've joined the CDF and I've joined this work stream for the sole purpose of saying, hey, this is a piece that neither one of us are talking about that I think needs to be talked about. And we're talking about a complete, secure supply chain framework, and then add on to that the tooling that's involved. I think we really got something here. So now I'll pause for any comments on that. But before I start writing a blog, I just want to level set here and say, I want to write one, and I think we can write a powerful one if we include all of the above. Go ahead, Melvin.
So I agree with you on all fronts. I think the original idea pre-Samba was, how do you apply SLSA from a development standpoint, or what do you need to consider from a development standpoint to apply SLSA? So that one's a different discussion than, you know, unifying the two frameworks and now potentially even a third to have like a comprehensive. This is more focused on development. What should you be doing to make sure that you can do SLSA properly? And for other folks on the call, please feel free to correct me if I misunderstood the original intent of that conversation of blogs that Jeff originally suggested.
No, I think you got it right.
Yeah, no, I hear that. So I'll tell you how I interpreted that. Considering what to do from a development standpoint, I don't think that. So the way I interpret it is, you can't just start with SLSA, because SLSA catches you at the build point. If we're saying what does the company need to do from a development standpoint, I think there's a couple of steps that need to be covered. So there's a few things that would have already had to have occurred that gets addressed elsewhere. And then I don't think that you can success. So, and the reason why I brought up that third point is when you the only way I can preface this, and I'm sorry, this is the only analogy I can give for this, and you guys may or may not get it. But I'm in the bodybuilding community, right? So I'm a coach. I coach athletes who compete on stage and all that stuff like that. And some of my athletes, they like using supplements, okay? Before they use supplements, before they use any supplement, I always say to them, do you have a proper, what's called a PCT, a post-cycle therapy, right? So before you use any supplement, like any testosterone booster or anything like that, do you have something to regulate your hormones after you're done with that 8-week cycle, right? The reason why I talked about that third piece, and the reason why we talk about the development angle to it, what do you need to have in place from a development standpoint in order to properly use SLSA? I say, well, since SLSA sits in the middle, there's got to be stuff that would have to have been done in the beginning, but you also have to make sure you have a piece at the end to archive, maintain, share or use or whatever it is, the artifacts that are generated, right? So when I consider development standpoint and what do you need to have in development, I think all of these pieces should be, readily understood before, during, and after. Now, that was when I interpreted. That's how I interpreted it. Unless there's a unless I'm going too far, right? I'm thinking too far, and I should just keep my scope relative to salsa, and then I can do that too. But I'm thinking about what will be more of a robust blog, or a better story to tell around around salsa and its actual impact to an organization, and how all of the other pieces can work together.
Marcella, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I guess, Jay, would you mind explaining a little bit more what you mean by end of life cycle? Like essentially what this third piece, like what that new framework actually does? Because this is the first time I'm hearing of it. So.
Oh yeah. So somebody asked about a link too, and let me see if I can't pop up one here. Yeah. So I originally, when it first came across me, I said, well, are they trying to pull a fast one? That's what I originally. That's what I originally said, and of course I said, well, no, let me not jump to conclusions. Let me go ahead and jump on to their to their GitHub site, to all the sites. Let me read up, and what I found was very interesting. I'm trying to find it here, so I'm trying to find it as I'm talking to you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
If you guys can see the links. All the links I have open on my screen. We really need to do something about this.
Oh, you're not sharing your screen, Jay.
Oh no, I won't share it in this fashion.
Okay.
This is embarrassing. I got so many links up here. I got so many links up here. It's not even funny. This isn't it. I got so many links up here.
So while you're looking for that, Jay, so just a quick I guess comment, and again, you can feel free to agree, disagree, right? This is the salsa positioning, right? And so when I think salsa positioning, I'm just focused solely on salsa. Now that begs the question, now that we have the Microsoft framework being adopted into SIG, I remember last time in last week's meeting, they were like, well, maybe we should bring up the positioning SIG to handle multiple, right? But I think for now, we have to focus on salsa and only salsa, because that's the charter, that's what we know. And then we can always expand on it. But again, that's just my point of view based off why this positioning SIG came to be about.
Oh, I'm in agreement. I'm fully in agreement. I think they should be separate. But when we go ahead with a blog post, I'm thinking about mentions. Ultimately, I don't what I don't want to have happen is I don't want to have happen for us to have to do double work.
I would agree, right? And yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think maybe how we go about it, it could be an offline conversation when we're writing it. Mentioning of other frameworks, I think that's fine. I think it's more of the focus would be salsa. And we could mention the other ones, but we could leave it out of scope, or we could say it's for another blog post, right? Instead of one massive one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My general thought process was, in terms of development, we need to have this piece in place, that piece in place. So in order for us to do this, and this with respect to salsa. So,
Yeah.
and we could say those other pieces are out of scope for this discussion, but you have to make sure you're covering down on this end in the beginning, and this part that comes at the end to focus on this right here, this long piece right here, in the middle. That allows us to be able to flush that out, those other pieces out, in later blog posts, which would not be double work.
Yes, correct.
right? That would just be added on conversation as time goes on.
Okay, yeah. Trying to think, did you find that link, Jay, or no?
I'll get it right now. I gotta go in a different way now, that's all.
Okay.
Uh,
So while you're bringing that up, Jeff, are you able to talk to Build blog by any chance?
Yeah, not nearly as well, because I've really just started thinking about it. Kind of, I'm in the planning phases. Excuse me, in the planning phases still on that one, and starting to do a very basic outline. But my thought with it is essentially taking that whole build process, taking all of the salsa components, and then kind of mapping them to it and explaining kind of the importance of salsa throughout the build process, and explaining what kind of the importance of each component and why they're all there, and really just kind of dovetailing off of that piece. So that's my initial thinking. I'm definitely going to need some help. I know Jay already suggested that I reach out to him, so I'll be doing that once I get kind of an initial outline put together. But definitely willing to have anybody else jump on who wants to take part in it.
Do you have meetings, or how are you working on this offline?
I've really just started. So
Okay.
I haven't done anything so far.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind helping. It's more of a if I don't have it on my calendar, I forget.
Right.
So if you want to have asynchronous, right? I think obviously Slack, but I don't mind helping. I just need a reminder in some way, shape, or form. So
Okay.
so if you want to ping me on Slack, or send a meeting invite, then I'm more than happy to help.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay. Let me look. I'm looking at the extra to-dos. I did push a PR this morning, or earlier today, for the charter, as well as updates to some of the governance documents around the SIG. It seemed to be missing from various places, so I did that update. So if you want to view that, I'm trying to find, here we go. This is the PR. Feel free to comment, or if you see anything that's missing, feel free to add it. Submitted for the charter. Did you find that link, Jay?
I put it in the chat.
Oh, okay. And so now that you found that link, did you want to answer Marcella's question? I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry, Marcella. What was the question?
Oh, it's totally fine. My question was just if you had more details on what this SCMM framework is supposed to do, simply because also the like GitHub doesn't seem to have a whole lot of extra information. Although I do understand now why you're saying that that salsa sort of falls in the middle, because this is salsa, as you said, is about build. Now that we have the artifact, what else do we do with it in the life cycle? It seems that this SCMM wants to cover things like testing and stuff.
And the only thing it doesn't include is end of life, which I mean, which is just as important as everything else. I mean, that's the only thing it doesn't include here in terms of what happens after the fact.
Right.
And so I have there was a meeting that was supposed to happen today. I was ready for, but it got moved to the 18th. So once I jump into that meeting on the 18th, I'll be able to ask more questions and I'll know more. But what what we're all looking at right here is what I got. And then of course, reading a lot of the entries on the Slack, a lot of the Slack stuff and the conversations there. You know, I was able to get on their Slack and read. So I have that, but this right here is the GitHub site, and that's what I got here. But just reading it and understanding where all of these different frameworks sit in the grand spectrum, I can clearly see a you know, the lineage or the line, you know, the bridging on all of them. I can clearly see it, and I think there's a meat here for us to chew on. My ultimate objective, and I always say this, is ISO specification. I think we can do it, and I think this is an added piece towards that.
Yeah, essentially it looks like this new framework would be a consumer of SLSA at the stations, right? If we were thinking about the sort of, metadata coming out of a SLSA aware build,
Yep.
the SCMM would take that and maybe validate or not, but yeah.
Yep.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. For the Google Groups, the Google or the groups.io migration, Kim from the steering committee said that she was going to reach out to the TAC to see if that's true, if we have to migrate off of Google Groups. Obviously, Mike in the last meeting said he doesn't believe that's true, but Kim said that she was going to go figure out if that truly is a requirement or not. So we're going to put that on hold for now. And I'm looking through, and Jay, there's another one. I'm looking at the highlights from previous meetings. It says, Jay, maybe bring in Adrian to help clarify some questions, deep dive on the, I think on the new framework. So not sure if that's still going to happen or if it's going to happen now that you're part of the supply chain integrity working group. Maybe if that's more of a an item for a different meeting.
Oh no! As a matter of fact, I believe that we should have a joint meeting. I believe there should be a joint session happening.
Okay.
And Adrian's actually he would have been here today, but he's actually traveling right now. So that my plan was to bring him to this meeting today, but he's actually traveling. So
Traveling. Okay.
So there that is. But there's a vision here. My vision is for us to have our individual sessions where we're both building and we're doing things. You know, we're keeping them separate, but making sure that we're considering one another, and then a joint one where we actually build those bridges, right? That's the long tail vision. But yeah, he would have been here today because I know that there were questions, and I wanted him to come, but he's traveling, so I have to wait for our next meeting.
Okay, and no worries. I don't see anything else on the highlights that were still outstanding. So any topics, questions that people want to bring up? Otherwise, we'll repurpose for working session. It's a quiet bunch.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. This meeting's always going to be on a Tuesday. Okay. So my thinking is to try, and feel free if others want to disagree or agree. I'm thinking we should try to focus on the blogs. Because I think one of the first blogs we were trying to target middle of this month, and it has not happened. So if we get any blog out by this month, that would be fantastic. So we can do breakout sessions. I think there's a way of doing breakouts. I'm not sure. Is there, or is that a Cisco WebEx feature? It doesn't look like I can do that here. So I'll leave it up to the folks on the call. What would you like to do with the remaining time?
I'm with it. If you want to work on the blogs, I'm with that.
That's
Sounds
one.
good.
Okay, I heard a second. Do we have a third? Okay, okay, I see a couple of thumbs up. Okay. So the next question is, how do we want to do this? Because there's two blogs to be worked on. Which do we want to work on both at the same time? Just in different docs, or do we just want to focus on one?
Probably makes the most sense to just go ahead and work on the first one, and then kind of do one at a time, and because
Sure.
ideally they should build on one another anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So development one, it is. Jay, do you have a place for that yet? That you're working from, or no?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
Open. I'll open the place right now.
Okay. Thank you. And if you're able to share your screen after you share the link, because I can't get my screen to work with the sharing for some reason.
Yeah. So you guys get to see my shame. There's all these links here in a couple of seconds. This is the doc that I'm working. This is the doc that I'm working from.
No worries. I usually have multiple Chrome, Firefox, and Safari with multiple tabs on different desktops, and I can never find anything. So I'm with you.
Gee, I think you're in better company than you know.
Yes.
I mean, what's funny about it is it doesn't really matter like what I do or you know how many times I restart. Doesn't matter. By the end of that day, we're back here again. You know, it doesn't matter.
Okay. And if you see anonymous, oh, I don't like that name. It says anonymous shrew. That's not nice. I've forgotten my password to my Google, and so I need to I need to reset it, and I haven't had a chance. Third party. So feel free, folks, to start typing and suggesting things. From a development standpoint, right? We have to think about, you know, the code, right? Whether it's proprietary or third party. And given that we're open source, I would think that we would want to talk about that in some capacity because there are specific SLSA levels currently, right? Around the source. I know we're trying to postpone it for 1.0, but let me see what version 0.1. What 0.1 says, I forgot. Version controlled. There we go. Right, so these are the items related to source. The developer can't control the build.
So actually, this sort of came up on one of the many GitHub issues that are currently open around the specification. And there are some requirements that do have a developer component, even though they are related to build, because they're related to the like configuration of the build. So if you're if you have like a config file for your builder, which happens even with GitHub Actions, right? Where you have this like YAML file, for example, that actually is still something that the project owner needs to handle, right? So at least from the specification standpoint, we've started to think about, you know, who is responsible for meeting certain requirements.
Yeah, that persona. So I would guess once you start going into the higher SLSA levels, the developers can't own
Yeah.
any part of that config versus the lower levels they can.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So at what point does it break? Is it after SLSA 2? Let's see. So do you remember where that delineation is when it goes from being configurable to not? Because it looks like it starts at 3. That this is like, you know, it's a pre-built, it's not really a developer. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right that it's around 3, but if you look at the current hermetic requirement, for example, still says a user-defined build script needs to do part of the hermetic, needs to sort of set up the dependencies, and then the build service also has some responsibility to complete the sort of hermetic requirement. But we're actually trying to split this apart, this requirement apart. So it's possible that, yeah, after level 3, everything is fully automated.
Yeah, I'm looking at the version 1. I see it says this right here. I'm going to copy it in the document for people. User-defined build script. Now, when it's saying user-defined build script, is it just referring to like an admin? Or is it truly meaning a developer?
So I think that's the project owner or the source owner, right? Because I don't think that the build, I mean, again, thinking of the build service being GitHub Action, for example, like, I don't think they have any visibility into the dependencies without
Correct.
that coming from the source. So
Okay. So currently level 1 and level 2. Could be developer created for the config file, something like that.
Yeah. There's another issue that was discussing this too. Let me go find that.
Okay, so then if we look at build for level scripted build. The scripted. So do we want to leave? This is where it gets murky. So Jeff, what's your thoughts on, because there's the build blog coming up, right? But this is a developer blog. So at what point do we say, okay, well, a developer could do this? Or do we just focus on just pure development, not necessarily having anything to do with building that software?
Yeah, that's, I mean, and this can be totally fluid. Because again, my idea was really just kind of initial thinking. But the initial thinking is that we kind of keep them as very separate things. So kind of going up to the build process, and then mine would focus specifically on build.
But with this config file for build, I feel like that would be up to the build process, right?
I think so. I think so.
Okay, so what else? Build service, build as code. Definition. Okay, I'm looking config file build. Anything else? Oh, there's a common requirements. I know we're somewhat postponing / generalizing it. Do we want to talk about the common requirements from a development standpoint? Like if we think of security as an example. Thanks for joining, Benny. I probably too late to say thanks. I just saw the chat.
No, but just a step back to clarification. The intent of this blog is to teach developers the benefit or how to use or how to deploy SLSA. What is the real intention? So we can try to tune what should be included in the blog.
That's a good question. I think originally it was just derived from a picture, and Jeff, I don't remember the intention. I just remember it being derived from that life cycle picture, and that we wanted to write, a portion about the development piece with regards to SLSA, but I don't remember the details.
Yeah, because we really didn't go through details, and to be honest, I didn't go through a lot of details in my head. What essentially, when I was looking at the picture that you would put together, or essentially the diagram that you put together, Melba, I was looking at it saying, if we could show how and where and why SLSA plugs in at each of these at each of these areas of the SDLC, then that might actually really be helpful to show kind of where it belongs and how.
Okay. How, where, and why in a development life cycle?
So based on that, then what kind of a view are we giving the reader then? Are we giving the reader a 10,000 foot, 5,000 foot, or 1,000 foot view of this?
That's a great question. I think what I initially saw in my mind's eye was a little more like a medium level view, maybe like the 5,000 foot view. Definitely wasn't like 30,000 foot view. We're not going to give a broad overview of SLSA. but it would really get into what you would be doing where. And not, I don't know, I do we want to really get into kind of, going to Bruno's question, are we teaching them, or are we really highlighting the need to utilize SLSA in order to secure the supply chain?
Yeah, my concern is that of course, a blog, it's not intended to be a very long text, right? So
Mhm.
it's good if you can answer one question in the blog. Like, for example, why, for example, if you focus on development, why should you consider SLSA? So that's the only thing that we would like to describe, and they came out with okay, I buy in. I know why I shouldn't use SLSA. So of course, you have to include what is those problems that exist nowadays that can be addressed with SLSA, and of course, what it's outside the scope, what it's SLSA it's not covering today.
Yeah, so maybe talking about the boundaries.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different blog than what we're talking about here, though, right? I mean, I think what we're talking about here is included in that from a high level, but I think and by the way, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying, like, we're talking about from a developer or development standpoint, which covers a one piece of SLSA, but not, if we're talking about what it is, what it isn't, etc. We can do that from a developer standpoint, right? We talk about whether or not you can verify that the build was done using packages, if you're rejecting a package, if it wasn't built using a source repo or something like that, or you can, like we could talk about those things, and that's I think that, but I think even that's more in the weeds than we want to be if we're considering what it is or what it isn't. And we come up maybe a level and say it could be used to understand what the requirements are for the package registry, or like I'm throwing darts at the dartboard with that one, but based on that 5,000 foot maybe sounds right. Maybe somewhere in the middle. Maybe that's 7,500 foot view. When we talk about what it is, what it isn't, or what it doesn't cover, because then I'll go back to my original. We're talking about it doesn't cover what happens from ingestion to build, and it doesn't cover what happens after artifacts are created and to end of life.
Yeah.
Right. So now we're back to, if going by what Bruno said, if we do that, then those other parts now become even more relevant to include in the blog. But like Melba said before, that doesn't cover just straight on SLSA, the positioning of SLSA for the developer.
Right.
So I like the question approach, and I'm wondering if we should answer all of those in one blog. I know someone mentioned, typically the blogs are short, but if we can say, okay, this is not covered by SLSA, but we may put, or release other blogs with regards to XYZ, right? And we can mention the other frameworks, and then we can go into like how. Right. So I feel like we could answer all three, like, why should they care? What's not covered, and then how they can go about it. I'm not sure if that's too long of a blog, but I feel like that would be a more comprehensive blog that maybe developers would rather read versus just just answering one of those questions, if that makes any sense.
I think that to how you'll be a very long blog. But for example, one thing that maybe can be useful, it's what it's not covering the SLSA levels, but try to be more, I mean, educational. Like, for example, what are kind of problems that you can catch with a SLSA level 1? And with level 2, you can catch those problems, you can solve those problems. 3 and 4, what it's outside of that boundary, for example, just to see how it looks like if I'm going to implement SLSA, but not how yet, but just to get in.
So do you think like a part 2 is like the how?
Yeah, otherwise I'm going to have, well,
Okay.
dozens of pages easily.
Yes, especially if you expand the what, the what, like that, the how would be, how would be, you could almost, that's almost a book.
Yeah, that's the point. Maybe you have several parts for part 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think to add to what everyone is saying, I mean, how is also just a little difficult to answer right now, exactly because we haven't settled on the version
level 4.
1.0 spec. Yeah. So
level 4 still hasn't,
yeah,
Well-
exactly. Yeah, we don't, I mean, but even for 1.0, levels 1, 2, and 3 are still not fully fleshed out. So
Right.
I think,
So-
yeah, focusing on the why and the motivation is probably more important.
Could we, for part 2, could we say, well, what should they do today? Right? Given that, you know, we're still working on the specification, like these are the things they could do, right? Because
I think we could even include, I think that might even be a, like a, this phone is going off today. I think that might even be a short, you know, down at the bottom of the blog, what, you know, what could developer do today? And then give a couple of lines and then say, you know, a longer version of this will be covered in part 2 or something like that.
Call to action.
okay,
yeah.
that's fair.
And I think one important question to answer, because I'm thinking about, I don't know if you heard how PyPI tried to institute like 2-factor authentication for top projects. And there was actually a fair amount of backlash from some developers because they felt it was an undue burden on their like development lifecycle to start using hardware keys for 2-factor. So trying to, yeah, I think really motivate developers, especially if this isn't their full-time job, why SLSA matters, I think will be really important.
Okay, I think I added that at the top. And I know it looks like a bunch of different edits because I'm not signed in. So, I do have to a hard stop in 2 minutes. So just kind of giving people a heads up if I drop all of a sudden. Anything else that we think we can do in part 1? Okay, so I think now that we have a place where this outline lives, we can add to it ad hoc. So I'm guessing by next week, next Tuesday, maybe we can have a little bit more words around some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
that sound?
This is good. This is a great meat for me to chew on. I mean, and of course,
Yeah.
do a session like this. I mean, this is not the original, and I mean, I won't say it's not the original intent, but this is definitely the direction that we should be heading with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is good. This is good.
Yay. Well, I'm hoping everybody agrees with another great meeting and very productive.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have to go, folks, but thank you everyone for
Thank you.
joining and participating, and we'll see each other next week.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.